Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're having a great day. The title of this presentation is What Worked for Us, Instructional Strategies for Improving Student Outcomes in Online, Hybrid, and Large-Enrollment Classes. So there's some folks here from the Smeal College of Business who are going to talk to you today. I'm going to turn it over to my friend Mark DeLuca.
All right, thanks, Derek, and I want to thank everyone for coming out today. So the goal of our session today is to talk about some of the challenges we face at the Smeal College of Business as it relates to teaching in online, hybrid, and large enrollment courses, and specifically how to turn those challenges into opportunities to better improve our student experiences. The goal of making them more engaging, collaborative, effective, and easier to manage. So we'll be looking at the challenges today through kind of the lens of the Smeal College of Business. A lot of the challenges are going to be universal to higher ed in general. And so a lot of the solutions that we're going to talk about are solutions that are available here at Penn State. So our goal is that through sharing what's worked and what hasn't worked for us, that it might in some way help you guys who may be struggling with the same challenges in your learning environments. And of course, I know in a group like this, we can always learn a lot from you. So we're going to dedicate plenty of time to panel discussion and an open forum at the end, where if you have questions or comments or input or recommendations or anything, we'd be happy to hear them. So before we get started, before Kit and Renee talk about some of those, the techniques and tools that we use to overcome some challenges in our online, hybrid, and large enrollment classes, I want to introduce our panel. We have a lot of great, what I would consider the best of the best at the College of Business, and we have a pretty good sampling here today. So Ron Johnson is an instructor in our Management and Organization Department. Vijayamani is an assistant professor of supply chain management. Nancy McClure is an instructor in accounting. We have Lauren Castillo, who is a teaching assistant for Accounting 211. And Jane Mccandless, who is a student support liaison for Accounting 211. And if you're not sure what that is, we're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes, so bear with us. So to get everyone warmed up, to kind of get us in the kind of panel mode, and to kind of set the stage for the types of challenges we're talking about here today, I'm going to throw a question out to the panel. And that question is, what is the biggest challenge you face in managing your class? So we'll just start with Ron and go this way. And if you could, just give us an idea of the scope. So the class size you deal with, the types of students you deal with, and the learning environment you work in.
Okay. So just to give you an idea of what I do, I thought I'd throw a question out. So by hands. So how many of you have kids? How many of you have kids? All right, so people have kids, so we kind of know kids. And does anybody have teenagers? Anybody have teenagers? Or had teenagers, right? So you think about teenagers. What kind of comes to mind when you think of an 18-year-old? An 18-year-old freshman, does anything come to mind? Really mature, ready to go, absolutely focused. So to give you an idea of kind of what I do is I teach Management 301, which is our Introduction to Management, which is a freshman and sophomore class. Right now I have 1,400 18-year-olds in class. And so if you have 18-year-olds, then just think of Ron with his 1,400, and then it gives you an idea of what I have to deal with. I also teach a BA 342, which is a junior-senior class, also a larger class. I'm about anywhere from 600 to 1,100 will be in that class at any given time. So I teach some large classes. And so the idea of kind of challenges in managing it, I'd say that for me there's always two challenges whenever you're scaling up. I mean, scale is a big issue. And there's an educational challenge. So first off, how do I get them to understand the course objectives? What are the different methods that I can use to reach out and reach that many people that I have to do? My typical class would be 700 students. So me in a room with 700 students, sort of a scary thought. The other part is, I'd say probably two parts. One is a management, one is a technical part. The management part is how do you just manage that many people? So those of you who are probably, how many of you teach classes or teaching classes in here? So you know what I mean, right? Managing a group of students. If you have 30 students, that's a management issue. If you have thousands, it's a management issue, right? So you have to figure out how to manage it, so that's always a challenge. And probably just for us, the technical part in the space. We have spaces that are big spaces, but not always well thought out in terms of the kind of technology you'd like to support.
Great, thanks, Ron.
Hi, I teach SCM 810, which is supposed to be an online public class. for supply chain management. But to give a brief idea, what it mirrors is something like taking a core supply chain concept and trying to teach it to professionals and trying to simulate a classroom environment like this. So you have people who have their day-to-day jobs, who have experience, and then for a brief window of time, they're going to log in and try to understand something that you're going to teach. And they're going to try to understand that based on whatever we upload or whatever tools we give. So we don't do a whole lot of instruction. But there's only so much that we can say to the class. What we do is we upload or give them tools to work with, and then open it up and try to simulate something like a classroom of this sort so that people can talk, go through the tools, understand, and come back. And most of them related to the experience that they are doing. So that's a master's level public program that I teach, and that's an online course, purely online course. The biggest challenge for that would be that it's 48 students, so the students is not a problem, but here when I tell you something, I have your whole 100% attention. So if I tell you that version 1.5 uploaded, all of you know that version 1.5 uploaded. There I put an update where somebody sees it at 8 a.m. in the morning, somebody else will come at 10 p.m. and say, I don't know where version 1.5 is. And I have to tell them, go back and check that. I'll get a question, Renee gets the question, the fourth instructor gets the same question, the other people in the class get the same question. So there's a lot of this chatter that happens. So it's great as a medium, but trying to make sure that they get everything that they should know at the same time, at the same place is the biggest challenge we face. So it's like having a Facebook page where everybody would like everybody else's post, but not see the instructor's post. So that's where we try to at least try to work with the IT team to make sure that everybody can make out that everything is there.
Thanks, Vijay. Nancy?
I teach, can I stand up?
Sure.
I feel like I can't
Absolutely.
see people, I'm sorry. So I teach BA 411, which is Smeal's capstone course, and I often think that the two major challenges are challenges that my colleagues have touched on. So communication is a big challenge when you have 800 students a semester roughly, and I have 20 to 22 TAs, MBA 2As, who work with those students. And the other piece is motivation. Particularly in the spring semester, we see a lot of senioritis, students who have already mentally decided, I have left the university, thank you very much, just give me my degree. So when we look at that, I often think, communication, it's like, remember when you were a child and you played the telephone game, I tell you something and then it gets told again, and pretty soon the quality of the message starts to deteriorate. So I think I've spent a lot of my time just working on honing communication with the generation that tends to like to have information in very small pieces and not too complex, then try to teach them how to do analysis, very difficult bridge to cross. And then just motivation would be the other big piece I think we struggle with the most, is getting them to engage with the material and feel like it's important to their future success.
Great. Thanks, Nancy. Lauren?
I'm a TA for Accounting 211, and Accounting 211 is a large course. It's for freshmen and sophomores mainly, so it's younger students who are taking this course. And we have about 1,400 students in the fall and a little bit smaller section of 700 students in the spring. I think the biggest challenge is it's a wide range of students. We have people from the liberal arts college. We have people in agriculture. And then we have people who are majoring in accounting, who have come to us taking accounting classes in high school. I've gotten questions from students like, what's a dividend? I'm not sure what that is. So it's teaching to that wide range of skills. We don't want to go too fast for the students who don't know what a dividend is, but we don't want to go so fast, that we're skipping things, and yet we don't want the students who have taken accounting to be bored. We don't want them to tune out to what we're saying, because we do have something to teach them. And that's a big difficulty with this course.
Thank you. Jane?
Hi, I'm Jane Mccandless, and I'm a student support liaison for Accounting 211, and we'll define that a little bit better in just a minute. But again, like Lauren said, we teach 1,400 students in the fall, primarily students heading toward a Smeal College major where the course is required. 700 students in the spring, they're primarily coming from other colleges in the university where it's required for their major. And again, to echo what's already been said, I think communication is probably our most difficult thing, getting the word out to the students consistently and clearly, because with 1,400, you'll get asked the same question hundreds and hundreds of times. So the clearer you are, the better you are. And of course with 1,400, the volume of emails, you can guess. I mean, it's proportionate with the number of students. So for us, it's a large volume of emails, but we also have to remember that for every individual email and every individual student, that's their personal question related to their personal academic success, and it's important to them, and it's worthy of a private and personal response.
Great. Thanks, Jane, and thank you, panel. So to move things along, we'll turn things over to Kit and Renee. They are instructional designers in our learning design team, and they do a great job working shoulder to shoulder with our instructors and our support staff to turn some of these challenges hopefully into opportunities to improve those student experiences like we discussed before. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Kit.
Our introduction went a little bit longer, so I'm going to try to speed things up so we can have time for questions. So the first thing that I'm going to share is how we're using a blogging platform to deliver content separate from Angel. And we're all familiar with traditional blog with posts and comments, but here we're actually using it as really just a web publishing tool. And as you can see here, this is a program that Vijay teaches in. It is our Supply Chain Masters program, and this course is solely online, but here in a few moments Renee is going to show you how we use this platform in resident instruction to be able to, in essence, flip that classroom to focus classroom time on engaging students. So I'm going to just show you a little bit about the course. So the first thing that the blog has allowed us to do is chunk our content in a way that it's sequential for students to move through, so that the instructor has to spend less time guiding students through course material. So in a residency course, a lot of instructors upload content into Angel, into folders, into files, and students have to go searching for those things, collecting those items to complete an assignment. And through ITS, they did a survey about a year ago, and students weren't so challenging with, their complaint wasn't with the CMS itself, it was really about how instructors on campus use it, and that they all use it differently. So this is a way that we found that through this, it's very intuitive. Students know what this is. It's a web page. They know how to navigate through it. So this is a lesson in a module. And really, all this, and we have some media in here, everything is in one location. Their documents, the media. So everything is in one location for students. And it's really quick and easy to edit. If you know how to edit a blog, this is the back end of it. This is what you would do. You can put media, links, videos right here in one location. And to take that a step further, some of the things that we hear about is this planning from multiple sections. We've heard about Accounting 211 that has 22 sections some semesters. So by separating your content, you have one location where you update your content. It's static, or whenever you want to update it, you can. And then in Angel, you're updating things like your syllabus and maybe some dates, but your content isn't being updated in Angel, so you don't have to go to 22 sections in Angel to do that. So your content, the link for your blog, would just be put into a folder into Angel. So this is what students would see. In your folder, in your settings, you would add the link to your blog, and students would open that link, and the blog would open directly into Angel's frame. Students can go into the Manage tab, the Communication tab, the Syllabus tab. So they still feel like they're in Angel. Your course can still use all of the Angel tools that are really good. And so now, really the purpose for me to show you this is just the flexibility. And what this has allowed us to do is given us the flexibility to look at how do we blend our resident courses more effectively and provide tools for students in all one location. So I'm going to really pass it on now to Renee to discuss about how we've used this platform in one of our largest enrollment courses, Accounting 211, and it's allowed us to effectively flip the classroom and provide more student engagement in other areas.
Are you going to drive that machine while I talk? Okay. So flipping, we have basically kind of like a buffet of different things that we've used that are solutions to the challenges that our panel and other instructors at Smeal have faced. And I'm relatively new to the team, so really I'm just mostly reaping the benefits of other folks who've started this journey. And one of the hot topics is flipping the classroom, and Accounting 211 is is an example of that, and we'll talk a little bit about that here. But classroom flipping is where you essentially take homework into the classroom, lecture time, and lectures are done at home. And a study from, there have been a number of studies done in recent years on this. A study from the University of British Columbia did a study of 2 physics courses. One taught traditional lecture, one taught in a flipped classroom setting. 267 and 271 were the numbers of the classes. And what they found was that in the flipped classroom, attendance increased, there was higher student engagement, and more importantly, students learned more than double in the flipped classroom, content-wise, than they did in the traditional classroom. So what I want to do is give Jane and Lauren a chance to talk about the Accounting 211 class and how it works.
Thank you. I think Renee in just a minute is going to show you an example from our blog page and a little bit of how the students would get some information related to what they'll do each week in the semester. But they asked for me to just introduce myself a little bit and what my role brings to Accounting 211. I have a very unique position called Student Support Liaison. When the decision was made in the college to flip the classroom, Ken Pash, the course instructor, and the department were very concerned what would that mean for the students if they had more web opportunities and more opportunities to do things online. What would that mean for them in terms of gaining the contact that they needed? They created a position called Student Support Liaison, and that's my position. I am the bridge that connects the students to the very large class. I'm the one that the students direct their questions to. So our accounting students are all encouraged to come to me with any questions that they have. Ken actually, unless the question is directly related to grading, Ken actually just hits forward, and lucky Ken, he sends all of the email questions directly to me for me to manage. Why do we do that? A couple of reasons. One, my background, coincidentally and uniquely, is not in accounting. My background is in counseling. So it provides me an opportunity after many years of working as an academic advisor, teaching the first year seminar in the college for about 12 years. It gives me an opportunity to direct students to the resources they need and really get to what might be underneath their problem. Often it's study skills. Sometimes it's other things that are going on. And so it gives me an opportunity to work that end of it as well with the students. It also means that the answer and response they get is consistent. It also means that it gives me an opportunity to do what I would call some very informal data collection. I think Renee uses the term organic, and what we mean by that is when I get asked the same question over and over and over, it lets me know something's wrong in the way we're communicating with the students, because if we get asked that many times, then there must be something that we could do to facilitate them. The philosophy in Accounting 211 is that we want the students to succeed. We're not looking to be a weed out course. We're not looking for failure. We want our students to be successful. One of the things we've done in response to what I've heard from students, as students continue to tell me things like, well, I registered for the course and I'm registered only as a web student. Or I'm registered for the course, but I've got this class on my schedule on Tuesday and Thursday where I can go and see Ken Pash in the classroom, but I've got this lab on Friday and it's not working for me. What we found is that because students could choose in their registration how they managed accounting, they could choose in registering to only do it online, they could choose to do it with some class interaction with the instructor covering questions in more detail. They could choose a Friday lab. Students who in the registration process didn't get their first choice were really not attending things they wanted to or needed to attend. So we have gone as far this year as to say to our students in Accounting 211, regardless of what you are registered for, you can attend any learning opportunity that we offer. So we are working with our students to help them to understand that as learners, they may need to watch the lectures online multiple times, but they might be fine after they've done that. But as a learner, they may also need to go and sit in the forum building on Tuesdays and Thursdays and hear someone else live explain it one more time. They really may need to go to lab and listen to a TA explain it live, or they might be fine with our virtual labs. So students have these blocks that they can pick and choose from and then marry it in the way that helps to meet their learning success the best. And that's really in response to something that we've heard from the students many, many times. I don't know that we have exact data to tell you that that open learning opportunity experience is part of what's leading to their success, but I can tell you it's leading to student satisfaction. There's a high correlation with students being allowed to register for Accounting 211 and then attend any learning opportunity that meets their goals the best. The other thing that became very clear after I started working with the students is Ken Pash had a lot of material that we moved to the blog. We will show you that in just a moment. But what we basically did at first was we moved everything he had written onto the blog. Then students would sit down with me and I would have to say, okay, well, let me tell you what that means you really should be doing. And let me explain that in greater detail. And I kept saying, anytime what we have online needs an interpreter or a translator, then we've missed the mark somewhere in terms of our communication. So now we've gone back and taken his content, but rewritten it and reformatted it in a way that we hope makes more sense for the students. I think, again, my not being an accountant has really added to that process because I continue to say to Ken, who has what we call the curse of knowledge, he knows what he intended for the students to do. We keep saying that as a non-accountant, if I can understand what they're to do, and I can understand this, then they should be as well. And that's been something that's been a benefit to the process. There is no doubt that we do work with a very large number of students. We also work with a very large teaching assistant population. Lauren is one of them, and it's a pleasure to introduce her at some point as well to talk to you. In the fall, we have 26 TAs that work with us, and in the spring, 14. And it's a pleasure that part of my job is to manage that process with them. So not only have we flipped the classroom, but we've tried to take it one step further and listen to the students and open up their learning opportunities that they can attend and choose whatever works for them. And we've also tried to be as clear as we can by continuing to improve what we present to them.
Now, you might not get approval to hire a student support liaison, but learn the lesson that having a strategy or system to make sure that you've got somebody that's handling the emails, somebody handling the communication, somebody that's maybe give it to somebody who has no idea, no clue about your subject matter, and they can give a critical eye to your content. The course format in Accounting 211 we talked about, it's a flipped course model. And there are screencasts of practice problems. There's class time focused on course material and exam prep. Lectures are watched, like I said, for homework. Labs are online and face-to-face. There are podcasts of chapter problems, flashcards. The show is interviews of business executives from all over the country. And again, the one thing that is the most surprising for students in Accounting 211 here on campus is that student choice. They really get to choose how much or how little they want to engage. They're not graded on having to be in class or anything like that. And Lauren has the benefit of being a TA in this course format for Accounting 211, as well as having taken the traditional lecture format for it. So what would you see as the biggest benefits and challenges? And
Definitely, like Renee said, I had my first class all in the classroom. There wasn't any online technologies used for the course. Not to say that that was not a good class, but there are definite advantages I see to being a TA and students being able to be in this class where it's flipped. Students can use the materials they want. For instance, the podcast where we have the lecture, students can go through the podcast, they can pause it. If they miss something, they can go back, replay that, say that again. It's very hard in a classroom, especially as a freshman or a sophomore, to be assertive enough to say, raise your hand and say to the professor, can you say that again? I mean, it's nerve-wracking. You think everyone else in the room, they got that, and they're going to be looking at you saying, why didn't you get that? Why are you taking our class time to say this again? In the podcast, you can listen to it as many times as you need to. If you need to pause and go back, You can do that. There's no pressure on you to not do that. Also, the students who are a little bit faster, they can skip through the podcast real fast if they'd like and focus on the more advanced material, right? They have the time to do that then, and we don't have to lose them in a classroom. There's times, too, when students have things like exams coming up, and they're not focused in the classroom. Maybe they're not paying attention to what's being said. In a podcast, the student takes the time to say, this is the time I have to dedicate. I'm going to watch the podcast and pay attention. And hopefully they won't miss that. The other thing is, in the classroom, we learn the basics and we try to go a little bit deeper and we run out of time. But in this class, on the podcast, they can learn the basics themselves. And hopefully they can see where there's any holes in their understanding and bring that to us. And we have the advantage to use in the classroom time, whether it's in labs with TAs or in the classroom with the professor, Ken, teaching, we have that time to go deeper into the material and to supplement the basics that they've learned. So it gives us more time to build on what they learned rather than trying to teach the basics and then build on that in the same time. It gives us a lot more time to help them.
Thank you. And so the data doesn't lie. We just heard about analytics. Class exam scores have increased by 7 to 10% per exam, and letter grade has increased, or the class score overall has increased by a letter grade on average per student. So it's working. And one of the things that we implemented this past fall was the use of Yammer. We implemented that for Accounting 211. We're using it with a Consergo project, which is a really cool project that Nancy's involved in. We're using it in SCM 810 that Vidge is involved in. And I have Dr. Passmore to thank for being forced to use Yammer for our course stuff and being introduced to it. So I brought that with me. And Yammer is available free. We've heard a lot of talk in our community about it. Probably, how many of you use Yammer? So relatively familiar, but it's used in the classroom for communication, collaboration, file sharing, polls, course announcements. It's social networking, it feels like Facebook, and peer support. We're not going into the details of how it works, but I want to hear from you guys what you see as a benefit of using Yammer.
I guess, do you guys mind?
Go ahead.
Okay. I've used Yammer a lot with 211, and this is kind of the first semester that we've used it. We used to use Facebook. Facebook, not good. Students don't like to use Facebook in general. It's very personal, and it blurs that line of, this is my personal life, and these are my professors, these are my TAs. Do I really want to be on here asking questions? And just going from Facebook to using Yammer, there's a lot more use of Yammer. You know, there's a lot more questions we're getting. Facebook, they kind of used as a last resort. I'm in a jam, I'll ask a question. Yammer, they feel more comfortable. This is my class. There's some separation between social and my class. And there's just a lot more questions. I think students feel a lot more comfortable than going into a TA, than going into a professor. And everyone can see your comment. So if I can't answer it as a TA, maybe Jane can answer it. Maybe Ken can answer it. But we can all see and decide who would be the best person to answer rather than the student sending the email to the wrong person. Then that email has to be read and forwarded to the right person. The response time is a lot quicker, and we just get a lot more questions. The students are just so much more comfortable in, saying, I don't have to go face to face. I can just put this out there on Yammer.
Vidya, what would you say is the biggest benefit you're seeing in Yammer?
I would say discussion, because what happens is it's like after you finish with the class, I teach the same concepts at undergrad level and at grad level. If you look at the syllabus, the topics would be literally the same. The way to start and the discussion around it is like polar opposites. With the undergrad class, with the residence instruction class, I say, they listen, they execute, we move on. Period. With the online class, I facilitate. They learn, they discuss, they assimilate, then we move on. If they don't understand a particular topic, we have to be flexible enough to be able to give them more time. But what it helps is, at the end of the day, there's some meeting room, even a virtual meeting room, where they can discuss. And most of the time, they're discussing not only what we taught, but what they have been experiencing in their company. And that helps a whole lot, because what we are giving them is probably one blog, one page. What they are discussing is 10 years of experience of working in that field. And there's no way, no other means of communication that we could have got that discussion around other than like a Yammer page. And what also helps is if they have problems, usually one or the other person will help. And the one thing that we have which might be different is we have a game that runs, a simulation game that runs in parallel to the course, and they have teams. Now, one common complaint I got was I have to use my work email for work, my personal email for personal issues. Most of them work on online, like if they're working in Oracle or SAP, that platform is open, so that's the third window that's open. Angel for the course content, and then they have Yammer for discussion. Now, if they want to talk to their teammates, they have to use some other interface. That's 7 different interfaces. It's too mind-blogging. With Yammer, you can create discussion pages or team pages that they can communicate with each other. So they just flip in tabs, and they're staying within the same module or the same content. That really helps. So I am out of the picture now. It's not everything coming to me and me directing it to the individual teammates. They can do that amongst themselves, and I can sit back and just answer important questions. So that to me is the biggest benefit with Yammer.
And we're seeing also peers answering questions for one another. I want to give time for the rest of our content, so we're going to move to another technology that is implemented in a few of our large classrooms, clickers. And so Ron uses those in 2 of his classes and uses it to increase student engagement. So I don't know if you might quickly talk about that.
Kid, if you want to we can leave that up for a second, and then we can jump over to the other file. So in terms of clickers, and I know there's been, I think there's several other sessions where people talked about clickers and some things that they did. So I thought I'd just give you just a quick snapshot of kind of what we're doing with clickers, what's happening with our course, and then I'll show you just a couple of examples. When you think about, we started with clickers. I came in and I took over about a year ago our large management classes. So that was Management 301, the freshman, sophomore class, and then junior, seniors, ethics, social responsibility, and sustainability, junior, senior class. But again, very large classes. And those classes traditionally are just a straight lecture. I mean, if you would go in there, you would see an overhead projector, essentially. That's what you would have seen, an overhead projector, and we tell stories about management. So I'm just focused on management. My job was to change these courses, to start the process of changing the courses and bringing a lot more technology into the play and starting to do some different things. So working with Renee, working with Mark here on trying to start to think about what can we do with these big, large management classes. And so we started off with saying, okay, we're in the room, we got to do a better job there. So a lot more visual design kinds of things were incorporated. We incorporated the use of a lot more video. We started using a lot more images, a lot more, and we added clickers. And they said, really, we think we should clickers for some engagement. So doing a lot of different things for engagement. If you think about clickers, clickers are great. I've taught actually classes of 30, and it's great. You just you hand out clickers to everybody, and you can do a lot of really cool techniques. And they work really well in a small class. They're great for discussion. It's really different when you have 700 people in the room. It's hard to have a discussion. One of the factors we run into is, not in this room, it would be most rooms you go into, and you'd say, hey, here's a mic. What do you think about this? It's a total meltdown. I mean, you'll see students like, I'm good. I don't know. Or if you hand them a mic, no one knows how to use a mic. And so they'll say, yeah, I think the answer should, public speaking is a really difficult thing. And so you got to be kind of cognizant of that. So one of the things we did is by adding clickers, it does allow the person to anonymously jump in and say. It allows me to jump in and do a lot of different breaks. I had a couple of my book publishers came to my class the other day, and they're saying, we were timing you. I said, really? I don't know. Where did I screw up? What happened? They said, no, there was something different. He says, you actually change it up about every 6 minutes. About every 6 minutes, there was something going to be different. There's going to be some kind of a clicker thing where we do some engagement in some way. We're going to jump into a video. We're going to talk, mess around with that. We're going to do polls. We're going to do some kind of different thing. So we're sort of in transition right now, And Clickers is a really good tool that we've used in transition to where we go next. Does it make sense for me to be in a room of 700 people? I'd say, if I'm perfectly honest, I'm not sure that really makes sense. To be quite honest with you, I'm not sure that makes sense. And so flipping the classroom, so we're looking at lots of different ways to attack it. I'll just show you a couple here.
And I think we could show the first one. So even though and you can talk about the other kind.
Let's jump past the first one. Let's go to the second one. I'll show you the second one. This first one is just a simple testing of what they know. All right. So I teach Maslow's hierarchy. They do a question. Boom. There we go. But another way, a little bit more richer way to do mess around clickers. You teach on stress, and you say, you know what, stress is a really big deal. Managing your stress in the workplace, managing your employees' stress. So you go for it. We talk about, we'd say stress. Do we think it's actually an issue? Click forward. We'll say, let's look at a clip on, let's go back. Can you play the clips?
I thought I did.
Hit the blue. Click on the blue. Click on the blue letters. The blue letters.
Oh, just this one. Okay. I was like, just clicking on the
Click on the blue letters. It should get you there.
Well, let's say they've seen the, oh, here it comes.
Okay. It's a short clip. You'll like it if it plays. In the class, it goes really fast.
The Penn Stater's wireless connection isn't excellent.
Penn State
So
Fire.
it's a
the
video.
clip, all right, go ahead and click out. What we'll do is I'll just so you show a video. The video is really simple. The video shows this lady right here, all right, that young lady that just appeared, and she's very frustrated. She takes her tea and she spills it on a piece of paper, and this causes her some difficulty, and she's trying to wipe it up, and you can tell she's sad. She stands up and she goes, and she does this. This is a great clip. She everything off the computer, boom. And so now you have nothing on the desk. She steps out of the shot for a second, comes right back with a nice cup of tea. Sits down. So you go, okay, so obviously some workplace stress going on. Then you jump forward and you say, well, stress, physical, mental, heavy demands, constraints, opportunities. Talk a little bit about stress, go forward. And then I do this with clickers. We'll stay on this one for a second, Renee. Which below is true about you right now concerning your school stress? Now, instead of doing a classic Likert scale, I'm doing something just fun. It's low, it's average, high, it's hospital level, I'm chilling out. You do things for the students will like, and you run through that. You say school, go to the next one, and you say your personal life, what would you say is true for you? Penny, go to the next one. Significant other. Team seems that that's an issue for young people. Family, parents, what do you think about them? Your looks. Young people seem to have, just like all of us probably, a question about that. The data would blow your mind. The amount of stress in our students' lives is unbelievable. The numbers are really on the high end. They are stressed out across all of those things. So it allows me then to say, okay, so it seems like a big deal for you. You know what? It's probably the same way for your parents. Think about the stress your parents are under in the workplace. As a manager, now I can start to talk about what is the whole deal in terms of managing personal stress and the stress in the folks that we work with. So Clickers allows us to do a lot of interesting things, which if we do ultimately go to a more flipped model, we're going to incorporate still some of those things in there, because that's really a rich way of understanding it. Look at a video clip, ha ha ha, funny, funny, look at that, you wrote it down, talk about it, do some survey of what's going on with you, and then you get to the point. And it's a much richer way of attacking the subject.
And I think we definitely want to be sensitive to the panelists and for any questions in the room. So we have about 7 minutes. We have a couple other, I think.
Yeah, I was going to talk about our Peer Eval Tool, but we can skip that if you have questions. You can ask us about that so that we have some time for some questions.
Are there any questions for the panel?
Yeah, I actually took the Accounting 210 and BA 301 in 2005. So it's great to hear that it's enormously improved since then. I was interested to know a little bit more about the choice options that the students are given. So, do I do the hybrid or do I do it all online? Is there a opportunity for these students to then report back, like, now that you've done this, would you do that again? And also, related to that, are there correlations between, like, I did it all online, I did it, half and half, I did it all, in class?
Lauren or Jane, would you like to? respond?
You know, very quickly, what I can say is this. We've been new to starting the whole hybrid thing a year ago, and our first year, the students were really expected to attend based on what they were registered for. It's just been this year that we've started you can really go anywhere you would want to go. So this year, our data would be a little bit blurred in that we can't really just look and say, because you were registered for online only, we can gauge your performance because you were only an online student, when really you could have been attending other things. So one of the topics of conversation for next year is, how do we get a better handle on surveying our students so that we can then see what the data is? Because for right now, we didn't do that this year. So it's a really good question. That's one of the topics for conversation that we have already started in terms of next year, is looking at what they registered for doesn't indicate what they did or didn't do.
Other?
How do you deal with clickers online and asynchronously? Or how will you, maybe, is a better question.
We're not using them online or
So
asynchronously.
it's a great idea, and I want to do it online. What are we supposed to do?
But we do use polls in Yammer.
But if they're asynchronous, you don't get your results, or you don't know what other people are thinking, and you don't come back and look at it later necessarily, unless someone's pushing it out to you, hey, your poll's done, and this is what happened. I'm 3 pages away, or chapters or whatever. You're not getting the full value of that instant kind of feedback.
Renee, you want to take that?
Just ideas, I guess.
No, I think it's actually a very good idea in terms of if we go into the online environment, so what's going to be our best strategy if you do want to start polling people on things. So when I have in real time, and I can collect 700 responses, and I get some incredible data, you put the chart up on there, and you can just do some neat things with it. So that's probably one of our challenges if we want to still do that kind of a more rich content approach. How do we do it exactly?
Well, actually, I think Vidya and Jane and Lauren can attest that we have used the polling feature in Yammer and been able to gather data very quickly. Obviously, maybe not every student engages in that, but that could happen in a face-to-face classroom as well, right?
Well, in terms of the clickers, how reliable has the clicker system been as a system? Has it been up all the time and accessible?
I think of clickers, I started last spring semester with clickers, so spring 11, and it was a nightmare. So quite honestly, if you have never done clickers before, especially with scale, 24, it's been a snap, 24, 30, 40 students, it's been a piece of cake. In 100 Thomas is the room that we have 700 students in. First time we did this, it started off as a failure because the system turned out to be not robust enough to handle that many people polling in. And so we had to do a massive change in terms of software and technology to make it work. You haven't lived until you've had 700 freshmen yell at you, "It's not working, it's not working." And as you might guess, 18-year-olds are really kind and gentle with you. But the system has been, they've updated it, and right now I can do 700, and it's just bam. The counter is just spinning, and it's really been, I can say it's been perfect this semester. I've had not one problem with it. But if you don't have the software and whatever the latest hardware system is, when you get bigger numbers, it gets trickier. Right now it's working well.
Just a question about creating the blog and putting the videos and stuff. Do you have to I'm sure you have to get like some kind of copyright, Google to be able to post some of those videos that you're downloading?
I mean, a lot of the video content we have is our screencasts and kind of homegrown produced videos. So in the Accounting 211 example, the lecture is Ken talking over a PowerPoint presentation, and the show video is him when interviewing in our studio. So a lot of that stuff. So we do have other content and other courses that is copy protected and currently is not. Shouldn't be there. So we have some. I say that a lot. But so we're working on that. We're working with that to back off that. I'm sorry, Ron.
No lawyers here, are there?
As our name becomes more, is more and more particular about that kind of stuff, we're gonna have to comply. We're not
The content, like if I've got
Oh, that absolutely. The
Yes.
content is
The
absolutely.
content
We want
is-
faculty members to say, you know, they'll come in and say, I taught this for 15 years this way, and now I have to teach it online. Can you help me? And that's what our learning design team does. And even as far as the stuff that's out there, the copy protected stuff, I mean, there's fair use and things like that. We're not as uncompliant as we probably are appearing to be right now, but.
There's,
One of the things that we do is we put things on the reserve. And I think that, in some sense, when they click on reserve, somebody else does get the money.
We let the librarians do the hard lifting on the
They do the hard work.
copyright.
so there's
And
one.
some of the YouTube stuff is already, so we can put it in there. There are some things that we do have that, in all honesty, we probably shouldn't, so.
Kip?
I was just going to point out that for the blog, and for Accounting 211, and also for some of the master's courses online, when we use the blog and all of our resources are in one location, we also use these things called roadmaps. And especially for Accounting 211, I think that's very important to point out that students need direction of what resources are available to them and when they should be using them. So the roadmap kind of lays it out in Accounting 211 that on Monday they should be doing these tasks, on Tuesday they should be doing these tasks. So even though they're going online, all the resources there, you really do have to instruct them of when they should be doing them so that they stay on track and they can take that exam and be ready for it. So.
Right. So that roadmap, what might be linked there in terms of video is the podcast that Ken produced. But it will say, read chapter 1 and work these specific exercises. So again, we're referring them back to the textbook and not recopying content that's copyrighted, but just referring them to the right place.
So we are out of time. I apologize. I know that was a lot. It was pretty ambitious to do it in 45 minutes. But if you have extra questions, we'll be up here. We'll have our email addresses on the screen. So if you have any questions about afterwards, feel free to let us know. But we thank you for coming. Thanks for the rest of the symposium.
And if you think you can't be innovative, they do it. Thank you.